So you knew that you were going to retire. You'd been planning it.
Yes.
But when did you announce to the
In
church?
October.
In October, and then you retired.
3 months.
Okay.
I had planned for 3 months ahead of time.
And you retired in January.
End of December.
End of December. Okay. Now, help me see if I've got this right. You were planning retirement a little bit earlier, is what I've heard, and then the Golf McNair building came up for sale. Did you delay your retirement because of that, or
No, I was trying to think about that because that was one of the things that you mentioned.
yes?
We had this long-term, standing property acquisition committee
Yes.
that Leroy and Baraba
Mm-hmm.
and I think maybe Keith Robbins.
Keith Robbins was a part of that. I know those three. I don't know of anybody else.
That's all we had.
Okay.
Were those three, and that came up, and before I actually retired, before I announced my retirement, and it took a while, the process of going through, and I had thought in my mind, I had it that I really, other than the committee going through the process, I didn't remember when it was finally brought to the church, but I guess it was sometime during that fall, that October, November, December.
It was before I came, so I don't know for sure
You don't know
when
when
the
it
church
was
bought it, because it was already approved before I
It
came.
had been approved.
Yes.
I don't know whether it was approved before I retired or not.
Is that right? Well, I think property acquisition-wise, that was one of the most important decisions that the church made during those years. I can't imagine what we would do today without the parking lot that came with that, as well as the building itself. That's just a large amount of space.
All of this space along here, had houses from the corner north.
Okay.
There were, I don't remember how many houses up there.
And when you say the corner, you mean from Dixon Street all the way along Highland,
Yes.
all the way up to the next, where the mission house is now. That was all houses all along there.
There may have been one or two. I'm trying to think. I guess we had some parking back here.
It wasn't very much though.
No, but we did have some parking. Maybe a couple of lots, maybe 3. I don't remember just exactly what that was now. But then we bought this place that was on the corner here,
Yes.
which had been there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The church had an opportunity to buy it before I ever got here, and turned it down.
Yeah.
And then an attorney bought it, so you can imagine what that meant for the price. And he wasn't a church member, and so then somewhere along in there, fairly early, I think, in my ministry, that may have been the first piece of property that we actually bought after I came.
And that's an important piece because it squared us up on this end. It's just a little bit of parking, but really allowed us to do some different things there. You began pastoring. What year did you start here?
I came here in November of '79.
Okay. From Oklahoma.
First Baptist Church, Alva.
Alva.
Out on the Oklahoma plains. Have you spent much time in Oklahoma?
I've been in Oklahoma a little bit, but I don't know where Alva is.
Alva is northwest of Oklahoma City.
Okay.
125 miles. It's 50 miles before you actually get to the Panhandle,
Okay.
and about 15 miles south of the Kansas state line.
Okay. You know, all of our kids were born in Oklahoma.
No.
And
Well, yeah.
and then our oldest was born in Altus, so I pastored out in the Altus area, southwest of Altus. So we were in the southwest part of the state. And then I was in Ardmore before we came here. But almost 10 years in Oklahoma. And are you originally from Oklahoma? Okay.
Grew up about 90 miles from here. You go across toward Tulsa on 412, and when you get to Highway 69, the little town of Shoto.
Shoto.
You know where Shoto is?
Yes, sir.
I grew up 9 miles north and a little bit west out in the country there.
Is that right?
I was born out in Enid, Oklahoma.
Enid, okay.
Which is way out.
Yes.
Again, part of the plains out there. We lived about 70 miles. I was at Alpha 2 different times. I went, after I retired, after I moved, graduated. I didn't graduate before, but after I moved to back to Oklahoma, I went to a church just outside of Shawnee. I had been in that area before, went to school, but also pastored a church in that area. And I was there. I finished up school in Fort Worth, commuted back and forth during the week. I didn't do it daily, obviously. But I went from there to Alva as director of missions.
Okay.
And the BSU director. There's a small state school at Alva, Northwestern Oklahoma State University, it's called now. And I went out there and was BSU director and associational missionary. We had 4 counties in our association.
Wow.
And 15 churches. You believe that?
Well, there's a lot of open space out there.
Yes.
A lot of open space.
A lot of it.
Then you pastored in Ada also, is that right?
I left Alva the first time and came to central Oklahoma, Chickasha. And it was strictly a BSU job there. It was Oklahoma Liberal School, Oklahoma Liberal Arts, something like that. Chickasha is 50 miles south of Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And was there 1 year. And then I went to Ada as BSU director and spent 3 years at Ada.
Because that's where I know you had Lynn Lloyd and David James Alton Fannin were all part of your crew there.
Another guy by the name of Ross Parrott. You wouldn't have known Ross. He was with the state convention out in Arizona for a while. And I'm not sure what Ross is doing now. I'm not even sure he's still alive. But yeah, those were my guys.
And I know those 3, and I guess all 4 were just strong leaders through the years and faithful. So that's a testament for somebody to be able to serve. It's a joy, isn't it, to be able to see
it really
guys
is.
like
it
that.
Really, and I guess Alton is still pastor to
Still at Ardmore. He's been there
First Baptist Church.
40 years. I don't know for sure how long.
Probably.
He's been there. It's been a long time.
He went from Okmulgee to Ardmore. He was at Okmulgee for a relatively brief period of time.
Now, when you came here, this church had been declining for over a decade. I look at the annual church profile, the record of that we turn in the state and Southern Baptist Convention, and at one time in Sunday school, in the late 60s, I think 68, it says we had well over 600, almost 700 in Sunday school. But the year before you came, our average attendance in Sunday school was 318. They dropped by more than half. And that's got to be hard, demoralizing for a church to step in. What was it like coming from Alva to here, from a church to this church? And then what did you or the church do to help turn it around? I mean, because that's a big deal. So I'm going to say this right now. I don't want to embarrass you, Jerry. I've told this to other people. I'm going to tell you. You pastored here 21 years. I've been here longer than you now, 23 years, just recently. But I say this without any false humility at all. I believe that you're the greatest pastor this church has had in its 170 years. Because of where the church was when you came and what God allowed this church to become in those next 21 years. I am grateful. I came here inheriting a healthy church.
Trying to be.
We're still not a perfect church, but it was healthy when I arrived. It was not that way necessarily when you came.
That's right.
Tell us about that a little bit, if you don't mind, Jerry.
Well, I knew that. I had a deep sense of call to come here,
Yes.
and it was an interesting time. And the only thing I knew to do, having been a pastor before and operating the same way, the only thing I knew to do, Pastor, was to go to work.
Yeah.
And I believe it was the will of God. It was in the providence of God that we come. And I put an emphasis on reaching people.
Yes.
Discipleship. And Jesus said, go and make disciples. And I had preached that and tried to practice that all of my ministry. So, and it was the people. I'll tell you, I think about some of those guys. They were just great men, great families. They had strong lives.
Yes.
And we did it. The staff, Pete Ramsey was Minister of Education at that time. And Pete, I told him that I thought what we needed to do was build a Sunday school. Because I thought that that's the way you built a church. And I was interested in reaching people. And so we went to work. And I preached that. I tried to do that. Led the people to do that. And, we had some people who left the church. But for the most part, they rolled up their sleeves and went to work too.
Well, it's obvious God was at work, because that same annual church profile the next year shows growth instead of decline, and consistent growth through the years. And God did grow the church bigger with more people, but through those next 20 years, in fact, I often tell people that the first 10 years you grew bigger, and the next 10 years you grew deeper. That may not be an exact, because of the health of the church, because not being healthy. And it takes time to grow a healthy church. And it's clear that God worked in great ways through those years. What is one of your most satisfying memories when you think back over the 21 years you pastored here? What are the most satisfying things that you saw God do during those years?
Well, it would have to do with what you were just talking about. It had to do with reaching people.
Yes.
And to see the church become healthy.
Yes.
And then some things that we were involved in. We had a Dixon Street there was a front door, there was a main door of the old education building.
Yes.
There was a main door that opened onto that. Used to.
Yes, it's where that hallway goes out, where that window is.
Okay, that's right. And I was walking down that hallway, coming toward the offices. The offices were on the right at the end of the hall. I was on the hall, walking down toward there, and this guy came in off Dixon Street. And he looked like he'd been on Dixon Street. And, he said, I said, can I help you? And he said, I'd like to talk to one of the reverends. And I said, well, I'm one of them. What can I do for you? And he said, Reverend, He said, would you give me a couple of dollars so I can go down here and get a beer?
Well, that's honest.
I laughed. I could not help it. When I lived at Alba, the parsonage was right behind the church, and we often had people knock on the door there at night. And anyway, I said, when I quit laughing, I said, man, I'd love to, but I just can't. That just against what I practice. I can't do it. Oh, come on, Reverend. He said, you can give me a couple of dollars. And I said, I'm sorry, can't do it. Well, where that's going is we were a part of cooperative emergency. We became a part of cooperative emergency. CEO.
Outreach. CEO. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Several churches, and as far as I know, well, it does still operate.
Yes.
And I believed in helping people, and I thought if we could say to folks who came to the church to ask for help, we participate in a group of churches that help people. We're interested in helping you, and tell them where we were, what we're located, what days or what the hours were. Said if you go down there, they'll help you. They'll give money for prescriptions. They'll give you food. You know, we did the whole thing. I went once a week and worked at Cooperative Emergency Outreach, and I asked the staff, the male staff, to go once a week. And I think it was open maybe at least 2 hours, maybe 4 hours. I don't remember now. So that was a good thing.
Yes.
I like that. We participated in continuing witness training, CWT. And had folks who participated in that. They already had a group of folks who called Andrew Club, and I don't know whether
that was still going on when I came. I don't think they're still meeting, but I know the Shacklefords and others were still.
They were interested in reaching people and interested in seeing people.
Yes.
And we asked every Sunday morning. We asked visitors to fill out a visitor's card. And I don't know whether it was a good thing or not, but I'd take those cards and I'd read them after church was over, and I'd introduce and I'd ask them to stand. And if they didn't want to fill out one, that was their business. I told them, church would like to know who you are so that we can contact you and let you know more about the church.
Yes.
And then we had, what was the other thing that we did? Faith.
Yes.
FAITH, faith program, and it was an outreach, an evangelism outreach, and we used it effectively, and reached some people because of it. So those are things which I really look back and think, and again, it was a church thing. It was the people in the church. And I get kind of emotional when I think about a lot of those guys. Some of them you knew.
Yeah.
Some of them were dead before you got here. But I don't know. We just had a great time.
You know, you and I have preached a lot of funerals together.
We did, and you were gracious enough to ask me to be a part of it.
But we've talked about it gets harder. Some of these guys we've known so long, it just gets harder because we love them.
You're right.
What was it like pastoring here 21 years and retiring at the age, were you 65 when you retired?
62.
62 when you retired. And then just a few months later, this 34-year-old kid preaches his first sermon. What was it like watching?
Pastor.
Because there's a generational change. I mean,
In spite of what I said a while ago, about it didn't take them long to find a good pastor, I was tickled to death because I didn't want to see the church go a long time without a permanent pastor.
yeah,
And I was glad. And you had a young family, and you were a young man, and a nice wife, and I really, in spite of what I said, I was pleased. And I think I told you at the time, and I told several people afterwards, they'd say something about how's the new pastor, and I'd say, he is absolutely great. I said, in fact, my wife loves him more than she does me. And I meant that, and I still mean it.
Well, from the very first moment I came, I felt like the pastor. A lot of times after a long tenured pastor, the new guy, he's the new pastor, but he never is really quite the pastor. But I think a large part of that, of how I feel, is because of the church body, but also because of you. Because you always call me pastor. You always have. We've seen other churches that don't always transition well after long tenured pastors. And I've appreciated your example on that. One of these days I'll transition as a long tenured pastor. And I need to be sure and follow the positive examples like yours that I've seen. Hopefully I've got a few years left before I have to make that transition. But it's important to know how to hand the baton off to the next guy to come in. And you've done that well these 23 years. But it can't always be easy, because you see things that don't always go the way maybe you would have thought. A sermon that maybe could have used a different emphasis here and there.
I'll tell you what I did. One of the things I did, as far as worship was concerned.
Yes.
I did, for a few years there, I did a good bit of interim work, and I got to preach, and then I worked 5 years at the chaplaincy at the hospital and got to preach there in the chapel services on Sunday morning.
You retired, but you didn't quit.
I couldn't quit.
Yeah.
My prayer was, Lord, I want to be used the way you want to use me.
Yeah.
But I forgot what was I?
The transition. You did some interim work and preaching a lot of places, chaplaincy for 5 years.
I made my mind up when I retired. I told my wife, I said, I think we need to leave, go to a different church. Let's wait and see what the pastor's like. See how long it takes to get a pastor. Yeah, okay, that'd be great. And I told the people, I said, I'm not going to do any weddings. I will do funerals until you get a pastor. And then the pastor is in charge of the funerals. And again, you were kind and gracious, and when people said, can our former pastor be a part? And I told you, I just want to be, if they want me to be a part, I want to be a part. I wasn't going to be in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So really, you were a good breath of air.
Well, thank you, Jerry.
And I still feel that way about you.
Good.
And I'm glad you're my pastor.
I am too.
We decided to stay. I told my wife, I said, you've followed me around various places, Oklahoma and Texas for 50 years, and now Arkansas. For all of these years, not 50, I was 40, for 25 years. I said, it's your turn. And if you want to stay, we'll stay. I'm not going to be there probably that much anyway. And she said, I really like my Sunday school class. I think I've told you this. I really like my Sunday school class and I won't stay.
That's good.
As far as I know, it's worked out pretty well.
As far as I know.
Yeah, good.
Well, you mentioned Roy Sand. You and I are up front a lot, but our wives are, it's just an important part of the ministry. Tell me about Roy Sand's work, because she had a full-time job. And tell me about Roy Sand's work and about her ministry as your helpmate, as a mother, just as a church member.
She, I don't know what happened, because I think the lady came back to be the director again. But at mid-year semester time, we'd been here 2 months, and the director of Play Learn resigned. And they asked Roy Sand to take that position. Brand new, she hadn't done it, you know. They asked her to take that position, so she did. She was an educator. She was a elementary school teacher, and had her education. So she took that job, and she stayed with us 6 months or the rest of that year. But then she got a teaching job in public school, just simply to help with finances.
Yes.
That's the way it was. So we had one girl in college and one girl in junior high. Girls can be expensive. But she was also, that did not keep her from being a part of the church. I taught a Sunday school class for a while, taught a pastor's class for a while, and she came to that Sunday school class. She did not solicit money, but she kept it in front of those people, and there were some wonderful people in that class. If there was something going on, that she would let them know about it. You know, not with us, and not even in the church necessarily. But she reminded me of this. I had forgotten about it. She reminded me of this, that there was a child that she had in school. She taught in Springdale when she first got her first job. She taught Springdale, and there was a family there that something happened with the father. He was a truck driver. I think he was over the road guy, and for some reason or another, the company that he was working for, he got back off of the trip, and they refused to pay him. And so she came to Sunday school. She did not ask anybody for money, but we met down there in the auditorium, and she just got up and said, I have this child in my class that the family is really financially strapped, and we need to pray for them. And I guess before the class was over, I've forgotten, maybe or when the class was over, she had $600.
Is that right?
That people.
God has used her in a powerful way.
Yeah.
In your life and in this church, in your family. We're so grateful for our spouses, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
We'd be in a heap of trouble without them.
I told the group, you know, there were times I had to be careful what I told her.
Yes.
You know, the thing, what was going on, because as sweet and mild and so forth as she is, if I said something negative about something that was going on and the way somebody was responding to it, well, she was off of them or on them, not personally, but she was on them like ugly on a day. I think she's forgiven all of them. I don't think she remembers that.
But protective. Our wives can be protective of us.
She was very protective.
Yes.
Or wanted to be very
Yes.
protective. But then I taught another Sunday school class, and she helped with that. And then she taught in children's.
Is that right?
Worked in the choir, sang in the choir. She was telling me that I'd asked her about this, and I couldn't remember all that she had done. Worked in Vacation Bible School, and she said one year in Bible school that there was a lady in the church that was working in Bible school, and they were not long-time residents here in this church. But anyway, this lady, I don't know whether she was working in the same class, same department that Royce Ann was or what, but anyway, she told her, she said, you know, I've never had a pastor's wife that worked in Vacation Bible School before. And we thought that was kind of odd.
I do too.
and she went on to say, she said, I'm sure Lisa does.
She does.
I was sure that we were both sure that she did.
Yes. So that's one of the things I love about this church, is that they allow our wives and our children to be church members, not the pastor's family, but to be part of the church family like we would expect anybody else to be a part of it.
Thank you. I meant to say that because I've told other people that. I said, you know, they let Royce Ann be who she is.
Yeah.
And that's good.
It is good.
That way she doesn't resent what she does.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, good wife, good woman, good family.
Yes.
I want to hear from you. How's it been to follow a 10-year, 20 years?
You know, when I pastored in Ardmore, I followed a pastor who'd been there 27 years. And
was that a fight?
No, he left the church. He did join another church.
Okay.
And then I came after him. And so I wasn't afraid. I didn't have enough sense to know what it could be like. And but it's been good. It's been good. Like I say, from day one, I felt like the church respected me as the pastor. Whether I deserved it or not, maybe something else, but I've received that and been grateful for it these nearly 23 years now.
That had nothing to do with your hair turning.
Well, you know, the pictures with the cabinet with the other pastors, you don't know how many comments I get about it. Who's that guy with the dark hair there? It has turned white through the years. So I don't know how you kept such dark hair. It's looking pretty good.
I don't either. I had people. Kids, you know, always talk about your teenagers.
Yes.
And they asked one of our deacons' daughter, teenage daughter, asked him, and there was a group of girls together, and they said, "Does the preacher dye his hair?" and he said, "Well, sure he does. You don't think he'd be that dark now, do you?" If he didn't dye. And he knew better. And I had a lady church member. She asked me one time, "What do you put on your hair?" Oh, it's funny.
I think one of the things, you know, we both agree is that one of the greatest blessings of being in this church has been the staff we've been able to work with. You and I have shared, I guess technically 3 staff members, but 2 long-term, Mike Pasley, Lisa Wheat. Jim Thomas was still here. Jim's going to preach the 170th anniversary sermon.
That's great.
And so, but now with Josh and David and still with Lisa, just the staff is such they can make it miserable or make it a joy. And the staff that we have make it a joy being here. They work hard together and love one another.
That was another thing. When I retired, I told the staff, Lisa would remember, maybe, and Mike should remember, but I told them, I said, you're getting a new pastor, and I'm not the pastor anymore. and he's not going to do things the way I did things. And you need to either fall in line or you need to go. And I felt that way. I don't know that they felt that way. It wasn't a real threat, but I meant that.
Yeah. And I know what you mean, and I bet they understood what you mean by that. If you
Yeah.
can't support the new passion and direction, then there's a natural transition that needs to take place.
Yeah.
But they're such good staff.
Yeah, they're good staff.
And
good people.
Have worked hard, and just a joy, just a joy. What do you want to see the church do? What's your hope and dreams for the church in the days ahead?
You know, I thought about that after, Roger had mentioned that to me. That might be one of the things that I talked about. And Pastor, I really, as far as specifics are concerned, I don't know that I have a to-do list, but I would like to see them continue to reach people.
Yes.
Continue to love people, and to continue to love God.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And grow even in it.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly. One of my favorite things on a typical Sunday is watching the church family hanging around after church.
Isn't that great?
They're not running for the doors. They're just visiting, talking, loving one another. And I love that. I love that because it's the loving one another. Love the Lord, stay faithful to His Word, lifting up Jesus, and loving one another. Reaching the community, loving one another. Yeah.
One nice thing about that is you don't have to turn off the lights.
That's right.
You don't
Somebody else have to turn the lights. That's right. To the last one out, turn off the lights.
Yeah.
I'm going home. That's right. That's right. Jerry, I've enjoyed visiting with you today.
You going to tell me anything about your years here?
Oh, they've been good. They're still counting down. I don't know. We'll see what's happening. Joys and sorrows, right? Pastoring is joy and sorrow. And this is a great church to pastor. Good church to love. And, our 150th anniversary, the Sesquicentennial. I might have told you this story. I don't know. We were getting ready for one of the events. We had a special Sunday for each of the former pastors, the four of you, and then the big Sunday for everybody. And Farba McNair, no, not Farba, Fern Yonkin. Fern Yonkin was in the kitchen. She was so funny. She was in the kitchen getting ready for something, and we were just bragging. I hadn't been here 2-3 years, so I could still brag about it. And we were just talking about how great the church was, how good God was, and she was chopping up something. I never will forget this, Jerry. She was chopping up something, bragging about the church, and she stopped. She goes, "Don't mess it up, preacher," and then just went back to chopping stuff. And I have felt that now for these 23 years. Just don't mess it up. God's doing something good. Don't mess it up. And
that lady, I could talk about a bunch of people, but she was so funny.
Yes,
as you said.
Yes.
After the church voted to call you.
Yes.
She had made the comment that you and Lisa looked like the bride and groom on a wedding cake. That was one of her comments. And then after the call, and she said, "Well, we decided to adopt him."
She's so funny.
She ever told you?
No, she never told me that. That's Fern Yonkin.
Oh yeah,
that's Fern.
Yeah,
to a T.
Yeah.
So many fine people part of this church. Some have gone to be with the Lord. Some of us just getting older, and yet I just rejoice in seeing the young couples that come through. Just love the college students, the young couples that come through this church, and it's a joy and sorrow. The joy to watch them come and grow in Christ, and then you send them off. So you don't know this, but Ashton and her husband are moving to Utah.
Are you really?
We are.
They're going to be working with Daniel Savage. Dan's gone up there to plant church and the Redemption Church. Is that the right name? Redemption Church. Redemption Church has planted a lot of churches, and they're going to go up and support one of those church plants. What city are y'all moving to?
Kaysville.
Kaysville. Okay. And so they're moving in July, and we haven't even officially announced it yet. Jared's one of our associates, but the joy of all of that is also our sorrow, right? We love seeing these young families come through, and we count it as a privilege to be able to send them and to bless them. They've blessed us, and they're going to bless the new church. So we're proud of you guys as y'all get ready to do that. And
Thank you. That's wonderful.